Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the January 13th, 2022 City of Walnut Creek Planning Commission meeting. Will you please call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Lezak?
Here.
Commissioner Strongman?
Here.
Commissioner Ward?
Here.
Vice Chair Reiser?
Here.
Chair Kraselic?
Here.
And Commissioners Pickett and Anderson are absent tonight, but we do have a quorum with 5.
Great. Thank you. The first item is consent calendar, but we have nothing on the consent calendar this evening. So we will move on to public communication. Anyone wishing to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda may approach the podium or call in or Zoom in or all these high-tech things we're doing these days.
Yes, if you're on Zoom, if you could please press the raise hand button, or if you're via phone on Zoom, dial *9 if you wish to address the commission.
And we have nobody here in the public wishing to speak, and anybody online?
No.
Great. Okay, thank you. And we will move on to the next item of business, which is public hearings. We have one public hearing this evening. We have the Primrose Preschool at the Orchard Shopping Center conditional use permit application Y21-028. And we will start off with a staff report.
Creek, and we are here tonight to discuss the conditional use permit for the proposed Primrose Preschool that will be located at 2291 Oak Grove Road. This is the last remaining vacant parcel in the Orchard Shopping Center. And the applicant, John Finmore, and his team are here tonight representing the project and to answer any questions that you may have after the presentation. First, let's start with the project site. The 25-acre shopping center is bounded by 4 main streets, Shaylins Drive, Via Monte, Oak Grove Road, and Ignacio Valley Road. And access to the shopping center is gained from all 4 of these main streets. And the shopping center is split up into 9 separate parcels that consists of retail stores, restaurants, health clubs, offices, medical uses, and the Safeway store and pharmacy. The preschool will be located on the last remaining vacant parcel along the northwest corner of the shopping center, directly adjacent to Mike Hess Brewing Company. And the surrounding area consists of a mix of commercial uses and single-family homes, and the Citrus Marketplace Shopping Center is located to the north. And just a little background, in 2014, the City Council approved the Orchards Shopping Center with a planned development and the Shaylands Gateway Specific Plan, which allowed the development of the mixed-use project on site. And the approved PD and the project EIR at the time recognized a total development capacity of up to 225,000 square feet of commercial uses and 200 senior housing units that are located to the west of the site. And at the time, a restaurant was envisioned on building pad K, 7,500 square feet. This exhibit actually shows the footprints for each building pad that was approved for the shopping center and the associated parking at that time. But due to the property owner did indicate that due to the current shift of the market related to retail spaces and restaurants, there's many vacancies in the Orchard Shopping Center that they're not able to fill. So the property owner does support the proposed Primrose preschool development on site. And please note the additional 5,300 square feet for the preschool building will bring the total commercial area for the site to a little over 200,000 square feet, which is still well below the maximum building area of 225,000 that is allowed. And the proposed childcare facility use is permitted subject to a conditional use permit. And we are here tonight because it requires Planning Commission approval. Now moving on to the proposed project, the 12,838 square foot preschool will be located on the vacant 45,000 square foot parcel, and access to the site will be gained from the existing driveways that lead to the shopping center, and access off of Shaylands Drive and Oak Grove Road are the closest to the building site. The project also includes new landscaping, 3 outdoor playground areas that will be fenced separately by age, and I have just highlighted those here, and a new emergency vehicle access route from Oak Grove Road, which I show here as well. And the proposed use does require 50 parking stalls, which brings the required parking on site to 707 parking stalls with all the combined uses. There are a total of 723 stalls on site, leaving a surplus of 16 stalls. Therefore, the project, the parking for this site is adequate for the proposed use. And the project appeared before DRC for a study session on October 6, 2021. DRC expressed concerns that the proposed drop-off and pickup operations may impact the existing parking flow of the shopping center, given the maximum capacity of the preschool. The DRC requested more details on how the operations will work within a busy shopping center, but also deferred judgment on this topic to the Planning Commission. DRC also provided design-related comments, suggested the building be located a few feet back from the parking lot in order to preserve the existing trees and the light poles that are in front of the building. And in response to DRC comments, the applicant has updated their business operating plan to include a staggered drop-off schedule. When this project was taken before the DRC, a lot of information wasn't provided in the business plan, which resulted in DRC having a lot of questions and concerns. And the applicant has now provided more details on the anticipated number of vehicles and parents during peak hour and how it will be managed for at full capacity of 218 children. We will go over later in the presentation. If the use permit is approved tonight, the applicant will make the necessary changes to the architectural and landscaping plans and return to the DRC for final design review. And here is a layout of the interior space of the preschool, which can accommodate up to 200 children at full occupancy between the ages of 6 and 4-year-olds. And the interior space shows 13 classrooms where the children are separated by age. Each classroom includes an entry door from the interior corridor and egress doors that open out to the outside of the building. The exit doors are required for each classroom per the regulations of the building code for a preschool of this capacity. And now moving on to the business operations plan. The preschool is a licensed child care facility that will operate as a typical daycare. The hours of operation will be Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and closed on the weekends. A total of 13 stalls will be designated and used for the pickup and drop-off operations, which are also identified on this exhibit and circled in red. The stalls will be marked as 10-minute short-term parking during peak hours, but the parking stalls will continue to be open for customers and other tenants of the shopping center outside of the peak hours of the preschool. And Primrose will require their staff to park on the rooftop parking lot, keeping the adjacent spaces next to the building available for customers. The parents will also be required to park their cars in the marked spaces and walk their children into the building. And the outdoor play areas will be on a staggered schedule, supervised by 2 staff members per playground. There are a total of three playgrounds. The playtime will end at 5 p.m. daily. And now going into the details, the preschool will utilize a staggered drop-off and pickup times for the children, and all parents will sign up for a pickup and drop-off time slot to ensure that the staggered procedure is being maintained, and a set of instructions outlining the preschool operations, the parking locations, a circulation diagram will be given to each parent or guardian. A recommended condition of approval has also been included, directing parents to use the 13 marked stalls. And if the 13 stalls are occupied, the parents are directed to proceed to the rooftop parking to utilize the shared parking of the entire shopping center. And this condition of approval will prevent any backups or stops in front of the building or in the drive aisles that would otherwise impact traffic flow. The parents are required to enter the building and sign their children in, thereby requiring them to park in those marked spaces rather than dropping them off from the drive aisle. And no traffic congestion is expected during the morning, since most of the businesses are closed and don't open till after the drop-off of the children is complete. And the only other exception is a Starbucks, Crunch Fitness, and Safeway, but Safeway is located on the other opposite end of the shopping center. The pickup timeframes will occur when all other businesses in the shopping center are open. However, the staggered schedule will ensure that the 3:30 to 6:30 pickup is evenly dispersed and spaced out over that 3-hour pickup timeframe. And the applicant also stated that based on other Primrose locations and their experience, they have never experienced a busy or mad rush that is more typical for primary and secondary schools when everybody gets dropped off at the same time, as childcare pickup times are spread out. Additionally, Primrose School will be in daily communication with the parents, so the pickup schedules will be monitored by staff, and adjustments and pickups can be performed if needed. And the DRC requested more details, that if at any time the preschool operates at the maximum capacity, how will it be handled? How would the operations work? So the business plan was updated to include that the during the peak hour, a total of 78 cars or 78 turns are anticipated per hour. That is approximately 6 cars per hour per stall, since there's a total of 13 stalls dedicated to the use, and with an estimated 10-minute drop-off and pickup time frame. That is a total of 234 cars in the 3-hour window, which exceeds the 218 child maximum capacity at the preschool. Again, this is only if it's at maximum capacity, so it could be much less than that depending on how many children enroll. And there is additionally the traffic study that was prepared by W-Trans determined that there would be a decrease of 289 trips compared to the previously anticipated restaurant at this location. And though the preschool is licensed to provide care for up to 218 children, the applicant has indicated that it's unlikely that there will be 100% occupancy at all times. About 80% occupancy is typically seen in other Primrose preschool locations. Additionally, the drop-off and pickups can occur in less than 10 minutes, so that would also increase the number of vehicles that 13 stalls could accommodate during peak hour. Also, the applicant mentioned per industry data that approximately 25% of the families have a second child enrolled in the same facility, which would also reduce the number of families that would be dropping off or picking up their children. The pickup information was supported or is supported by the city's traffic engineer and the W-Trans Engineering, which we've included their report as part of the agenda packet. And here's a quick look at the proposed design and elevations of the building. Efforts were made to design the proposed building utilizing the same materials and design theme as the other tenants in the shopping center. However, DRC stated that the building does lack articulation and there is excessive use of stucco. A more prominent front entry is required and more design detailing and window treatment is required to comply with the design guidelines of the specific plan. And please note the project architect will revise the architectural plans to address DRC comments prior to returning to DRC for a final design review. What you see here is what DRC saw, so this will most likely change the exterior appearance of the buildings, yeah. Here are associated improvements for this project. The 3 outdoor play areas will be fenced separately, and the project also includes an emergency vehicle access route along the northwest elevation of the parcel that leads to the back of the building from Oak Grove Road. The EVA will be designed so it does not interfere with the multi-use bike trail and crossings that you can see on this exhibit, and those are within the easement areas behind the building. The existing plantings around the bike trails will remain, and new landscaping consisting of 6 24-inch box trees and 5-gallon shrubs and a variety of ground covers would be planted on the side and rear of the building. DRC expressed no concerns with the proposed EVA. However, DRC did require more landscaping and trees to shade the outdoor play areas, and the applicant will again update the landscaping plan before returning to DRC. And all new development must be consistent with the Shadelands Gateway specific plan, which divides the shopping center into 2 districts, the Gateway and the Shadelands Drive districts. And I have provided the exhibit here straight out of the specific plan is also figure 3-1, attachment 7 of your agenda packet. The project site falls under the Shadelands Drive district, which encourages community facilities such as this proposed preschool. And the project also introduces a new business that is a community setting educational use that will be complementary to the existing mix of tenants that are located in the shopping center. And additionally, the project will develop a parcel that has been vacant since 2017, so that will help to further expand the shopping center's ongoing viability. And the preschool use is consistent with the zoning, and due to the reasons I just identified, the project meets the goals and policies of the specific plan. And now finally, moving on to the findings. So in addition to the standard use permit findings listed on this slide, specific findings for child care centers are required. I will quickly go over all the how the project meets the use permit findings and the additional findings. So A, the preschool complies to all city regulations and design guidelines, will be constructed in an already established shopping center setting. And B, buildings will be located more than 35 feet from Oak Grove and will complement the mix of uses that are already established in this shopping center. And C, the use is located within 500 feet of another preschool, and the Planning Commission will need to approve an exception to allow Primrose at the orchards. There are no specific findings that are in our Muni Code that are required to make this exception, but staff does believe that the Planning Commission could make the exception as the 2 facilities will be located in separate shopping centers with no overlap on the parking areas or on-site circulation. And D, the use will not impact the privacy of adjoining properties as the building is not located next to any residential uses. And additionally, existing and proposed trees and the 6-foot-tall perimeter fence will provide screening as well as the added privacy for the children that are playing in the outdoor playground areas, as well as to the adjacent users. And E, drop-offs will occur while most businesses in the shopping center are closed, as we mentioned earlier, and a staggered schedule will be implemented for the afternoon pickup hours in order to avoid any congestion or backup or any disruption to the on-site circulation. And F, there will be no noise impacts as the new building abuts the existing open space area of the shopping center, and the outdoor playground areas are also strategically placed in the side and rear of the building and away from the adjacent tenants' outdoor seating or patio seating area. And additionally, the use of the play areas will end at 5 p.m. daily, which is prior to when that patio seating area for the tenant is most occupied. Therefore, staff does not foresee any issues created by this establishment of the proposed daycare use in this location. And yeah, with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit as proposed, subject to the conditions of approval, or agree with DRC concerns regarding traffic flow and provide the applicant with additional directions so they could revise the plans and, if needed, return back to the Planning Commission for final consideration of the use permit. And for the record, staff received one letter of support for the project. It's included as attachment, I believe, 8 of your agenda packet. And I didn't receive any calls, emails, or correspondence in opposition of the project. And one thing that was pointed out to me by the city attorney, we forgot a few standard conditions, so we would like to incorporate those, I believe, four standard conditions that we have copies of, and we will pass around. And that is all I have for my presentation, but I will be here for any questions.
That's correct, and those are standard conditions on all of our CUPs. They just fell off the draft of this resolution.
Yeah, while we're doing that, I think we were probably supposed to disclose contacts with other people before we did this, so I'd like to do that now, if I could. I did exchange a few emails and had a meeting with the applicant, John Finnemore, so I just wanted to disclose that. I don't know if anybody else wants to do that as well. I apologize for not diving in with that before we started.
So that's good. Were there other contacts?
I did receive an email from the applicant, but did not respond to it.
As did I.
All right. Thank you. Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Always. And we will go to, do any commissioners have questions of staff? And Mr. Lezak is ready to go.
Okay.
Just a quick one. So you did say you didn't receive any communication from the public. I would assume that would mean that you did not receive any communication from the folks at Safari Kids with any concerns relative to this exception?
I actually visited their site and I told them about the proposal because I wanted to see how it compares to this, basically the occupancy, and because that's also a shopping center, I wanted to just look at it. And yeah, so she was aware, the business owner was aware that we're having a hearing tonight, and I did notify her, but heard nothing in opposition or no comments from the business owner.
And in order to make that exception, I mean, I noticed in the staff report you speak to that the applicant believes that there's sufficient demand for both facilities. What are the findings needed for the planning commission to make this finding for an exception?
Yeah,
Are there any?
So there were no findings, no specific findings, just apart from the conditional use permit and the childcare findings, but there's no findings to making that exception. It's basically, in this case, based on, because they are going to be located in 2 separate shopping centers, so there would be no impact of one business over the other within that shopping center.
Okay,
If I could add a little bit to that, Commissioner Lezak, yeah, as Mrs. Gill mentioned, there's no specific findings, there's no additional findings required specific to the waiver, but I think you can look at the intent of the regulations with regard to daycare facilities, and there, there is a general subject area addressing, like overconcentration, I suppose you could say. So, that might be something that would come up, say, like in a neighborhood where if a number of homes were converted into daycare facilities on the same block, that sort of a thing. So I guess I would say that there's no findings, but you could probably infer what the code is looking for in that case.
One question about the emergency access. There is a large oak tree right at the street.
Correct.
Does the access impact that at all, or is it, what can we do to
Yeah,
protect it?
so initially the EVA was located closer. They've located it 50 feet away from the oak grove, from the oak tree along Oak Grove, and the plans were routed to the city's consulting arborist. And they will provide mitigation measures as part of conditions of approval in the design review resolution, if approved. Basically, yeah, just fencing around that tree, but it is 50 feet away, so there should be no impact.
Thank you.
I have a question about the nuisance noise section and characterizing children playing as a nuisance or excessive noise. I'm wondering if that's even legal, first of all. And I mean, I'm offended by that concept, actually. I actually live next to an elementary school. It is loud at times, but it's kids playing. I don't know why they scream when they do that, but they do. But it's not like patrons of a pub being intoxicated and shouting at each other. It's a completely different situation. So I'm wondering why we have to characterize it that way, and what's up with that?
So I think, are you talking about the reso where you mentioned the noise ordinance?
It's on page 6, paragraph 6 of the conditional use permit itself, the resolution, and it's also addressed in the
Correct.
staff
Yeah,
report.
I just put that, in this case, there is going to be no additional noise impacts than what's already in that shopping center. Everything will be, the kids will be contained inside the building at all times, except their break time when they go out to the outdoor play areas.
But I don't think we should be making them be contained within the building at all times.
Not
Kids need to be
contained,
outside
but
playing.
meaning like most of the time they will be inside, and then they get break time, which they will go in the outdoor play areas, which are, again, will be fenced off. I don't have the number in front of me, I'm sorry, I don't have the report in front of me, but the city's general plan noise ordinance, based on the number that they provide, the DBH, is acceptable for this proposed use.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's inappropriate to make a condition of use, the fact that kids can't be playing outside basically whenever they want to be during the day in an appropriate kid way.
Yeah, that point's well taken, and I guess I'd hearken to, I don't have it in front of me, but my guess is this ordinance and some of the findings in our CUP daycare provisions are, to some extent, maybe antiquated is not the right word, but they've been in there a long time, and so I guess I'll sort of speak for Mr. Smith, but maybe that's direction to staff to take a look at some of those standard conditions in the future. But as it stands now, that the noise condition is a condition in order to grant the use permit. But that's something staff can look at.
Okay, because I would like that, because I mean,
So
children
I-
are a protected class under the UNRRA Act. We can't discriminate against them for being kids. It's not okay. And,
So-
just as a practical matter,
So in the conditional use permit, I see where it says there's items we have to consider, and it says this isn't, there's a noise regulations we have to look at. This says there's no impact on page 6. But I see no condition that starts on page 7. Is there a condition?
The childcare findings didn't have a condition for noise. It was, let me see.
The applicant's
was-
business plan includes proposed hours of operation as well as timing for outdoor outdoor play by the children. I don't believe, and
it says that the outdoor, the use of the play areas will end at 5 PM, even though the facility is open until 6:30.
I mean,
is
they
that gonna
can-
be a requirement?
yeah, no, I
that
think they
can't go
can-
out there after.
I don't believe that's a requirement, but when we were putting the business plan together, the applicant mentioned that. So my condition basically reads that it should follow what's in the business plan.
And the planning commission does retain the authority to, of course, modify or reject any of the proposed conditions of approval by staff. So that is certainly within the jurisdiction of this commission.
Okay, well, I'm just saying I am not in favor of restricting the use of that play area to 5 PM. I think that's not appropriate. And I also am offended by the idea that the adjacent pub tenant has priority just by virtue of being, a restaurant over a daycare center, over the usual operations of both of those facilities. I don't think they're conflicting, but the way this reads, it suggests that that's a more important use, and I'm not convinced that we should word it that way.
Points very well taken, and perhaps we can discuss that more during the discussion portion of the hearing.
Sorry.
And I guess the one thing I would add, Commissioner Ward, is the condition itself is that it, seeks by design and layout of the site to avoid noise which may be a nuisance to neighbors. And so I guess the point I would make, and from what I'm hearing from you, is as a commissioner, you have the prerogative and discretion to determine that noise from children is not a nuisance, and therefore that condition is met.
Exactly. I just wonder if it needs to be stated more explicitly, given the other things that are listed in the permit itself. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you have one more question?
Yes.
It's not one, turn on. I'll try this one. Are there any other daycare centers in Walnut Creek that have the required staggered arrival and pickup time?
I believe so. That's typically required, or at least suggested as a means of operating the business. And I think the preschool in the Citrus Marketplace also applies a staggered schedule.
Staggered schedules have been used as conditions, have been included in conditions of approval in previous use permits, including, I think it's Kid Time out on Mayhew in the north end of town. We're actually right on the northern city limit line, as well as some others that I remember them, but I couldn't name them off the top of my head. But there is a precedence for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now open the public hearing, and we will give the applicant 15 minutes to address the commission.
Thanks, Simmer. Good evening. My name is John Finnemore. I'm with Primrose Schools. Allow me to quickly introduce who I have here, because they're all on our side at the moment. It's Travis Brooks, our zoning attorney, Scott Grady with TRC, our landlord and the owner of the shopping center, Nick Kurgi, who is my franchisee, who will be the operator, and then Kevin Karstens with W-Trans, who did the traffic/parking study. Here we are. Should make this full screen. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. So while Simmer's getting that set, again, as the commission thanked you, I'd like to as well. Excellent job. I'll try not to reiterate too much of what Simmer already mentioned, but I will just touch a bit on Primrose. So Primrose is the national leader of education-based childcare. We have over 450 schools in 33 states. We have 5 operating here in California, with 2 currently under construction and 3, including this one, in planning and zoning process. Nick is the operator of the very first school that we opened in Pleasanton back in 2014. He's currently doing a conversion of an existing childcare center in Danville, and he'll be the operator of the new school here in Walnut Creek. There was some discussion about the need for childcare in the area. Our demographics show that there are over 7,800 children ages 0 to 4 within the 3-mile radius around our school. And then if you open that up to a 5-mile radius, there's over 16,700 children 0 to 4. So there's, obviously the demand is there. As Simmer found from talking to the most close facility, they're not here to complain. They're seeing the need for childcare. There's different, versions of childcare. As I mentioned, ours is mostly education-based, which parents, greatly appreciate because it helps prepare their children for going to the public schools, down the road from our operation. Click through this here. There's just some of the differences of Primrose and, how we find local ownership and at times partner with a corporation, provide on-site care, et cetera. There we go. This screen here, but I'll show right here where the arrow is. This is one change that we've already incorporated that came out of the DRC meeting, and that was to push the building back a few feet, and in lieu of a fence in front of the building where we have multiple exits, that we have to secure the children in. They had suggested we make that like a half-height stucco-covered block wall to be a little bit more fitting in with the background of the building. But also the main reason for pushing the building back is there's a row of existing trees out there, which I show here, and kind of more pedestrian sized parking lot lights that will no longer need to be relocated, and they'll just, stay where they are now. And with those trees all, doing so well, it was, it's nice to find a way to move the building back and to maintain those. And then what I wanted to just kind of do next was to get a little bit into the parking discussion. So this is our site area here. I guess I got to look down here to do it. And these stalls circled here, that's the first group of 6 stalls, obviously most adjacent to our building, that will be signed for the drop-off and pickup. And then the second group of 7 is over here that will also be signed that way. So what we'll do here, there it goes. So that's the sign that would be in front of those 13 spots, indicating that they were short-term 10-minute parking for those 2 particular time frames, Monday through Friday. And then, takes a little bit to pop up there. There we go. So this basically, what we'll do here is kind of drive through the parking lot. So this is, there's our site behind the wooden fence, where that first SUV is the beginning of the 6 stalls that would be signed, for the drop-off. Then as you continue around the corner, that next grouping of stalls to the right is the 7 stalls that would be signed for our drop-off pickup. And then if a parent was coming in and finding both of those groups of stalls full, they would make the turn. Now they're heading back towards our school. There's the playground area. And then you can see our site now on the left, and then on the right is the ramp up to the rooftop parking, which is where what we're going to do is we're going to give a map to each of our parents that spells out where these locations are, and then request of them that if they are to find those 13 spots full, instead of to continue to circulate in the parking lot, to just go up to the roof, where they'll find fairly ample parking. You can see in the background there, that's the entrance to the elevator and the stairs that they would then take down. And there's a close-up version of it. So you can see it's a very safe, well-lit, you can see a lighting standard there to the right, area that they wouldn't feel uncomfortable making that their route back to the school. That's looking out of the elevator when you get down to the lower level. They would come out. They're just continuing out. And then this is kind of walks you through. There's the crosswalk that they would cross over the drive aisle. They would come out in front of that row of shops, and you can see in the far distance in the middle picture the fencing around our building. And then there it is as you get closer. So while it's a bit of a walk, it's not an unacceptable distance. Certainly for our staff who are going to require to park on the roof, this will be their daily, walk to work. It's very doable, and it's kind of overfull of parking really in a lot of ways right now, because people tend to just circulate, try to find parking at the the ground level. We'll be directing our parents that if they don't find the parking in the 13 stalls that are signed for their drop-off pickup, that they go to the roof instead of just circulating out there. Couple of things just to kind of mention about the traffic study. While the previously approved restaurant was 7,500 square feet and we're a 13,000 square foot building, the actual parking demand is 52 stalls less for our use than what the restaurant calced out to. And that's the weekday demand. Because we're not open on the weekends, effectively it's like 100 and some stall reduction in parking demand because we have no demand on the weekend. So, you know, I strongly believe that our plans to assign parents to drop-off times will truly stagger this pickup into 3 hours. I mean, it's just inherently childcare pickup is staggered just because people's work hours, you know, vary and differ from their, you know, fellow parents within the school. But by requiring them to sign up for 15-minute time slots will just further enforce that stagger and that pickup. And another thing that Simmer mentioned is that, you know, while this school would be licensed for 218 children, corporately we run at an average of 80% occupancy, which actually in the childcare business is pretty successful. So if you were, you know, like to take 80% of 218, that's 174 kids. And then also, as Simmer mentioned, you know, industry standards and our experience show that about 25% of the parents have, you know, 2 or more kids at our school. So if you were to reduce that 174 down by that 25%, you're really looking at like 130 pickups, you know, would be, you know, how a successful Primrose would operate in this, you know, in this situation. Now, of course, our traffic study, parking study, and everything is done anticipating the complete full capacity as, you know, as we would be required to do. But it's very difficult to really run a child care center at that capacity because you can't ever exceed it, you know, so you may sign up 218 children, but you're going to have very few days where you actually have that many there at a school that is technically running at capacity. And, you know, as I mentioned, we really are more likely to run at the 80% capacity. So while all the work and all the studies are done based on that maximum possible number of children that the state allows us to have in there, the likelihood of even being to those kind of numbers is not significant. So, yep, that's really what I have to offer, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that you may have, and I'll defer them as need be to some of my counterparts here.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to start off with a question on your business plan.
Sure.
And bear with me a little bit here, and feel free to ask questions. So the draft conditional use permit that we have in front of us says that we're going to make a finding that your business is not going to create a noise issue. You're not going to violate any of the city's noise ordinances, et cetera. When we get into the conditions, the first condition is you have to follow your business plan. Now, your business plan states that you're going to operate, or you're going to stop operating the playground area at 5 p.m. I think we've heard a little earlier, there's some concerns there. Would you want to change your business plan to eliminate that 5 p.m. cutoff and allow you to use the playground area the entire time you're open?
Sure. And the main reason that, I mean, we typically do end the afternoon play a little earlier than the closing time, just because, you know, as parents start to come, we don't want them to have to, you know, go out to the playground to gather their child, which would extend the pickup time frame, which is of, you know, concern. But to have that option, we would welcome it. The other reason that Simmer and I talked about it too was just the discussions of when the neighboring patio would be starting to be used to try to separate our activities a little bit. But I mean, we'd prefer to have the ability to use it later. So yes, I would, yes to your question.
Mr. Attorney, I think that's probably something you could change while we're talking. Any other questions from commissioners? Mr. Lezak?
So I have a related question about that parking. So hypothetically, I show up to pick up my children, have multiple children there. It's 5:30. They're out on the playground. I walk over to Mike Hess, have a beer, sit there, wave at him on the playground. I'm parked for more than 10 minutes in a short-term 10-minute parking space. What kind of enforcement would there be for my car that's parked there longer than 10 minutes. I know staff will be very upset with me because I may have missed my 15-minute window that I have signed up for.
Probably
And I would
as
not
upset
want
as
that
your
to happen,
children
of
are,
course.
actually, but
But I'm concerned about, would my car be towed? What kind of parking enforcement happens within the, I mean, this isn't, probably not a question for you, it's probably a question for the shopping center operator.
you want to take it?
Can you,
I think
can
you
you
gotta
please
come
come
up.
up to the podium? Thank you.
I think while Scott's coming up here, just one thing I would mention is, to start with, on your first offense, we certainly wouldn't tow your vehicle. We'd have a counseling session about it. But then we would defer you to Scott.
My wife already beat you to it, sorry.
Well, yeah, hi, I'm sorry, Scott Grady with TRC, the shopping center owner. I mean, practically, the scenario that you just described is really exactly what we want, and it creates a successful shopping center. We want parents to come early to go grab dinner at Jack's Urban Eats or Cowfish Grill or grab something from Safeway. That may mean that you don't park in one of those 10-minute parking stalls, frankly. That would be better that you just park on another stall or perhaps on the roof. But to answer your direct
It
question,
wasn't planned, it just happened. These things just happen.
so, yeah, I know the feeling. So, yeah, but I mean, practically, do we tow cars in short-term parking stalls? No, we don't.
Okay, so it's really an honor system.
It's an honor
The
system.
sign is there to indicate to the folks. The other follow-up information that are provided is all part of and the counseling session or sessions that will occur are all part of.
I mean, if we had a flagrant offender that maybe is constantly parking in front of say it's a dry cleaner, we've got other businesses that have short-term parking stalls. This isn't the only one. As a result of COVID and the increased takeout business, we've accommodated some of the other restaurants and marked more stalls short-term in other parts of the center, which has worked out great. But if you were to maybe park your car there every single day because you were lazy and worked in one of those stores and didn't want to park, and then we would be notified. Our security keeps track of that, and we would perhaps
So you
tow
have
that
an
car.
on-call tow service that you could use
Exactly.
on a case-by-case basis for
Exactly.
something like this.
Yeah, and it's
As opposed to the company that just has a contract to wander around and steal cars. and
it's
everything.
really bad business for shopping center owners to tow people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just great. Thanks.
Commissioner Strawman, any questions?
Going back to that scenario he talked about, is if I came and just parked to pick up my child at a different parking space, would that be a problem?
No, it wouldn't be a problem. I guess our main point of the 13 stalls is for the person whose full intention is to just pick up their child and leave. Those are the ones we want to direct them to. But to Scott's point, if Peter wanted to come and hang out for a while, we encourage that. He encourages that, but we then would encourage you to park in a different parking spot. So, ideally, we're going to try to instruct our parents not to use other stalls if their sole means for being there is just to pick up their child.
Okay, thank you. And how many of your other Primrose sites use the staggered sign-up sheets for pickup and drop-off?
Just a few, to be honest with you. We've got other schools that are in retail type centers like this, but to my knowledge, all of them have kind of their own separate parking lots that are, easier to supervise and say, that's Primrose parking. So, but consequently with that situation, that's also where the staff then parks. So now all of a sudden you've just reduced yourself down to the 13 type stalls, So this is the kind of the best way to make our use fit into, to more of a larger lifestyle type center like this.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Ward, any questions?
Okay, it may seem like we've flogged this parking thing, but we haven't. So, it seems like the success of this whole, particularly afternoon pickup, depends on these 13 spaces being available to people who are using them for the school. And if the signage just says short-term 10-minute parking, then that somewhat undercuts the use of those spaces for that, because, I always think my UPS store stop's gonna take 10 minutes or less, and there's nothing on that sign that says I can't park there for that and go right across to the UPS store. So wouldn't it be better to specify that it's for the school only? Can we do that, or is that not necessary in your opinion?
I don't believe it's really necessary just from the standpoint of our ability to strongly police it anyways. There's going to be a lot of that on the honor system. I mean, Nick and I were out there earlier, and I watched people using the handicap stalls, for the quick run into, I don't know where they were going, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Pretend we didn't
and
do
that's
that.
obviously a much,
Yeah.
more severe fine that it can be, the police will issue a ticket for that, where they are not going to, issue tickets for 10-minute drop-off stalls. So I think that people will be fairly respectful of it. Will people use it to go to another use? Yeah, that's going to occur to some degree. But I think it's kind of the best we can do to just sign them accordingly and try to work at least with our parents to not park in them and then go to another business. I mean, we will struggle with people who aren't affiliated with us that may use them, on some occasions.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Commissioner Reiser?
Just one quick question on, are there any plans for any kind of traffic flow, like at a typical school, traffic flow monitors? Is anybody from staff expected to be out there during drop-off and pickup, just to kind of make sure things are flowing smoothly? And
I mean, to start with, we don't anticipating a need for that, but we're certainly prepared to do that, as we approach higher occupancy and maybe foresee, those 13 stalls consistently being occupied, or, we may need to get a little more involved in monitoring the 15-minute timeframes other than how we can monitor that very simply is if parents log in and log their child in and log them out. So we've got a digital record of when they show up, so we can analyze that, via data. But if that then kind of needs to take the next step as to, because we'll get to know who our parents are and who they're, we definitely know who they are, but we'll get to know which cars are theirs.
Right.
And, if the need arose, we could do some monitoring out there, but we really don't anticipate it being needed. And, frankly, we can't take a staff member and say, hey, if you see somebody park out there and they go to the UPS,
Right.
you've got to go tell them they can't do that. I mean, it's the same with, the store operators right now who, have somebody coming in without a mask. They mentioned it to them, and
I would think it
They're not
would be,
taking them down.
serve as more of a deterrent than anything. If somebody's out there with a clipboard or whatever, if
Yeah.
somebody looks like they're out there from Primrose and somebody's going to park there to go somewhere else for a quick 10-minute jaunt, it would actually serve you better. But
Yeah.
to use an extreme example, I would imagine urban use, and you have 4 locations in San Francisco. Out of curiosity, how do those unload and load?
The which ones?
The San Francisco locations.
We don't have anything in actual San
I thought it
Francisco.
said you had 4
Or in the Northern California area.
correct.
Yeah, nothing in actual San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry if something I had
I saw
indicated
that
that
on the
misled
slide
you.
deck. Sorry about that. That's it for me.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
At this point, we will open it up to public speakers. Anybody wishing to speak on this item? I know there's nobody in the audience that I see. Is there anybody online?
Mr. Chair, we do have two attendees on Zoom. There's the hand that went back up again. There's a David who I will bring into the meeting here.
Great, now we will give David 3 minutes to speak on this matter.
And they should, if Zoom is behaving as it should, which is a big assumption, of course. Let's try this again. Okay, we have, David, who has been brought in. So if they can unmute and,
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Dave Ortega. I'm owner of Dulces Antojitos, one of the food establishments that's there at the shopping center and close, of course, towards the school. I guess just a simple question for us. We're a established business. It's a family run business. So of course, anything coming into the property is welcome for business, for not only us and for, of course, all the other shopping centers or people there. Will we be allowed to offer any type of food or anything like that to any of the employees there or so forth, or give them lunch specials and stuff like that at the place?
Absolutely, David.
David, why don't you go ahead and ask your questions and make your presentation, and then after public comments, we will go back and we will let the applicant address any of the public comments we receive. So why don't you go ahead and continue?
So I guess, yeah, it's like I said, we're a self-established place. Of course, this COVID has put a little hurt on a lot of us, of course, and we're trying to keep on board. We're not a corporation that's founded with a lot of other people or so forth on it. So we're a family-run business. So just looking for the opportunity that if we're allowed to, have during the working hours, allowed to be able to present ourselves out there to them, saying, hey, we have food we can deliver to you folks. We offer this food and so forth on it. Something to keep us, of course, established and keep going.
Okay, is that all your comments, David?
That is, I guess one of my main, that was one of my questions. You guys answered a lot of my other ones. The parking space was the other question I was worried about, being that we are pretty tight parking spaces already, and sounds like you've already going to offer having people park up on top too. So that was answered already. So that was one of my other questions.
Okay,
But that's it at the moment. Thank you.
thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, are there any other public speakers?
No, Mr. Chair, there is not.
Okay, thank you. We will then close the public speaker portion, and we will let the applicant respond if he wishes to the speaker.
David, if you're still listening, we would certainly welcome that. Nick would be glad to come and meet you, probably sometime while we're under construction, and get acquainted, as I'm sure he's going to want to with everybody else in the center. And Nick is a very gracious owner. He provides food for his staff on a very regular basis. So having local providers right in the center would be welcomed. Thanks.
Great. Any other remarks you'd like to make?
I'm all set, other than any other questions that may arise.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Don't sit down just quite yet.
Okay.
At this point, I will close the public hearing. And before we go to deliberations, I've asked the city attorney to tweak your business plan, and I'd like him to go over that with you and see if it's something you would be in favor of, and then we can discuss it.
Thanks, Commissioner Kurselik. Yeah, with respect to the business plan, I think addressing some of the commissioner's comments on page 2 of the business plan, the last section, noise, I think that issue is resolved by removing the last 2 sentences of that business plan, beginning with "in addition." I'll just read it into the record. In addition, the use of the playground areas will end at 5:00 p.m. daily. The adjacent tenants outdoor area is usually most occupied after 5 p.m. Due to the distinction in timeframes, the outdoor play area will not cause any conflicts to the adjoining tenants' outdoor seating area. So I would propose that section just be removed from the business plan to address the commissioner's comments.
I agree.
Thank you. And something you'd be agreeable to?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I will then bring it back to the commissioners. Mr. Lezak, do you have any comments, or?
I have no comments or questions at this time.
Commissioner Strongland?
I agree, and I like what our attorney has said. Children are not a nuisance, nor are they particularly noisy. They're children. The other issue I have is I don't care for the staggered drop-off that the parent has required to do it. I've been a parent for many years, I've been dealing with daycare and having that restriction that I have to hit that 15-minute window, I think is an extra burden that they don't need. I don't think we will have, I think they will stagger out naturally, but to have them to, okay, you're going to do this, and if we miss that too many times, you might have to go look for another daycare, I think that's unacceptable. That's comment.
Commissioner Ward.
My comments are that I think this is a really great use of this space, and I think this project is really well thought out. I think there's a huge need for daycare in our community, and as a working mom, I think that there's a lot of working parents around that are in need of high quality care for their kids so that we can work and do our thing that we do. And so I think this is much needed. I think it's a really appropriate space. I think it's, centrally located and along the major corridors to commute locations, and I think it'll be incredibly valuable to the community. And I think you've gone out of your way to make sure that it enhances rather than detracts from the operations of the shopping center. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that went in with that. And I think it'll be, like I said, a tremendous asset and value to the entire community. So thank you.
Commissioner Reiser.
Yes, I had watched the DRC meeting from October, and they had obviously a number of concerns. I think you have your work cut out for yourselves with them. But from our perspective, in terms of the parking and drop-off was a concern that kind of carries over to us with regard to site plan and circulation. I think you've done a good job of addressing and answering the questions, specking out how it would look and rotating them. I did the same calculations you were doing on 218, 80%, 175. A quarter of those have multiple kids. It's 132 cars. Over 3 hours is 44 cars, which basically means you're turning over those 13 spots 3.4 times. And even at 100% occupancy, should that happen, that's 4.2 times. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think there's other factors that come into it, like people going to other places to shop or drop off laundry or get a Starbucks or something like that, where that would just fall in. And I concur with my commissioners that I think it's a great use of the land, and I'm in favor of passing the CUP as such. Thank you.
And I'll just wrap up by saying I think it's a great business that's really needed, and I think this is a great location for it. I would be also in favor of the suggestion by Commissioner Strawman that we not worry about requiring staggered times and assigning people a 15-minute window to show up. And I'd like to kind of poll my fellow commissioners if that's something that they could all, and I can see that I think that would be pretty much acceptable. So with that, I will ask if there is any commissioner who would like to make a motion. Commissioner Lezak.
So I will go ahead and motion to approve conditional use permit application number Y21-028 Primrose Preschool with the business plan as modified by the city attorney and agreed to by the applicant, and with the additional conditions, standard conditions of approval presented by the city attorney to the planning commission at the dais.
And Commissioner Lee, go ahead, Commissioner Ward.
I just wondered if there were additional changes due to the nuisance section that we had discussed, if there were changes to the resolution as a result of that, or that got fixed by the business plan.
That gets fixed by the business plan because we didn't put anything specific to.
Correct. There are potential changes to the requirements in the business plan based on the staggered drop-off times.
So the question, I think, the clarification is, do we need to further clarify the business plan, and/or is there actually a condition of approval, which I think there is, that requires a staggered drop-off time that we would potentially need to modify
Right.
as part of this motion, right? Because that's condition of approval number 4.
Correct.
Staggered drop-off time shall be maintained at all times. I believe the intent of our use permit is that we still want a staggered drop-off time to be maintained. That what we didn't want is that the staggered drop-off time be maintained through some sign-up requirement of a specific time slot. So I'm not sure exactly how we achieve that, because the parking calculations that were discussed are still based on some staggered drop-off and pickup. I think the concept is that we believe that that drop-off and pickup will happen naturally through the operation of the business. It just says staggered drop-off shall be maintained. So if we leave that condition in, and the property through its operation seems to cause a problem, the project could then come back to us because they're not meeting that condition, and/or at that time, they would have to do some more proactive maintenance of that. So I'm not sure that we need to, I guess my comment is, I don't know that we need to remove or change that condition. So that brings us back to the business plan. Is there a section of the business plan that we think we would need to modify specifically to remove any requirement of the 15-minute sign-up?
I'm going to let Andy Smith correct me if I'm wrong here, but the portions of the business plan that address staggered pickups don't drill down to a 15-minute time frame. So I think that meets with your suggestion, Commissioner Lezak, that staggered pickups remain in place, but you're not, micromanaging, if you will, the exact nature of those pickups.
I mean, I think the intent of our concern, and you've heard this at other drive-through kind of concepts, is that what we don't want to have is a backup of cars that's a problem for the shopping center, for other users, et cetera. And I think by managing it in the way you intend to, by explaining to people when and where they can park, making those time spots available for 10 minutes as you have, encouraging them to stagger. As long as our condition is in place, it gives the city the ability to come back and enforce this if there's a problem. But we don't think that there's going to be a problem, but we'd like to keep the condition in place. So I think that means I'm back to the motion as I had read it.
And if I could just provide an added bit of information. So you did mention, of course, condition of approval number 4, and then the condition of approval number 1 does make reference to, condition of approval number 1 following the business plan. And the section of the business plan on the second page titled Detailed Information Provided to Parent on Drop-Off Pickup Operations. The 4th and 5th bullets both start with parents will be required to sign up for a pickup time slot or drop-off time slot.
Okay, so that's the section we do want to modify. We don't want to remove at least the word required.
It doesn't specify how big the time slot has to be. It just says parents, I'll just go ahead and read this.
But I think we do want to remove the word required. I mean, I think the intent of what Commissioner Strongman's concern is that requirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that we're trying to say, we're going to give you some flexibility to manage it. Hopefully it works itself out, but there's something in place that you can then require the patrons to do something different if it becomes a problem.
And I guess my simple suggestion there would be to change the word will to may, and then that could remain as part of their business plan, and they would have discretion to implement those measures if the owners felt it was necessary.
Seems appropriate to me if the applicant is comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think that's as simple as take 2 wills to may in bullet points 4 and 5, yep.
And
I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but page 6, the last paragraph, under paragraph 6 does reference the play areas ending at 5 p.m., so.
that's in the resolution?
Yep.
That's in the findings, yes.
So
Right,
since-
on page 6 of the findings, there is one sentence that says the use of the play areas will end at 5 p.m. It's not a specific condition, but
Prior to when?
my proposal or suggestion would be just remove that sentence.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a very well done motion by the group. Thank you, Mr. Lezak.
So, Andy and Brian, you guys got all that? We good?
Right, and if I recall correctly, your motion included the addition of the standard conditions.
It did.
And while we're at it, those are standard conditions in all of our CUPs that weren't, just didn't find their way into the resolution.
Yes, we
You're okay
read
with
them
that?
over, we're
Great.
good, yep.
In
All
that
right.
case, I'll second.
All right. Commissioner Strongman is seconded. Mr. Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Lezak,
Yes.
Commissioner Strongman,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chair Reiser,
Yes.
Chair Krasalik.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
thank you. And thank you, group. That was a very spirited and helpful discussion. We haven't had a discussion in such a long time.
It finally came on.
All right, we have no further public hearings. Next is commission considerations. Mr. Secretary, are there
We have no items under commission considerations tonight.
any commission member announcements or anything? Nope. No staff reports, no other announcements?
I forget if I've mentioned at the previous planning commission meeting, but work is underway with updating the housing and safety elements of the Walnut Creek general plan. The housing element, you're probably more familiar with the housing element where, the city gets its housing allocation for an 8-year cycle, and we're mandated to update our housing element every 8 years. Due to some recent state law, we're also required at the same time to update our safety element. And so that addresses things such as, evacuation and natural hazards and the like, and non-natural hazards for that matter. And so work is underway on that. And we do have consultants on board. And we're in the process of preparing our community engagement plan. And we will, of course, be coming to this commission as well as the city council, certainly, in the coming year. But I just wanted to let you know that work is underway, and you will be hearing more about that in the not too far off future.
Great. And when do you anticipate our next meeting?
The next meeting will likely be the next scheduled meeting, which, let's see, today is the 13th, so that would be the 27th.
The last schedule I saw had that one with no items and 2 items on the following.
Yeah, what's sent to you, I think, every week from our department secretary is kind of our draft working schedule. Things are very much in flux right now with a number of items, so we might have a meeting in 2 weeks, or we might not, in which case it would be pushed out to, I think, February 10th, if I remember correctly. But I'll certainly keep everybody in the loop on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Seeing nothing else, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting this evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.